Jahmyr Gibbs cannot be stopped, and Jaxson Smith-Njigba continues to prove he is the fantasy MVP of the 2025 season. We react to the best and worst fantasy performances in Week 12 on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Fantasy Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL, fantasy, and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 of bonus bets to use across the app. We had some monster performances in Week 12, and we had a lot of letdowns as well. So we're going to go through the best and worst performances, let you know whose stock is up and stock is down as we're entering Week 13. And then we'll get into our Week 13 prep at the end of the episode, starting with our waiver wire discussion. But we got to start with Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, this guy went full beast mode yet again, 264 yards. 3 touchdowns. He had 12 targets, 15 carries, but 219 yards on the ground with 2 long rushing touchdowns there, and one in the fourth quarter and one in overtime to win the game. And he's seeing the field a lot more. I don't know if it's because Dan Campbell is calling plays now, but each of the last 2 weeks, over 70% of the snaps, he's on the field. So David Montgomery has been pretty useless, but Jahmyr Gibbs has been just destroying it. Over 35 fantasy points in half PPR in 3 of the last 5 weeks. He is just destroying leagues.
Yeah, it's the same thing we saw last year when he was really taking over and destroying the second half down the stretch, right when fantasy managers needed him in that spot. And then that's what you're seeing it right now, where it's just domination. You just can't stop this guy. He's so fast and really hard to track down in a lot of games. So I just really like everything you're seeing here from Gibbs and the usage. And yeah, Dave Montgomery's not playable anymore. He's down to RB26 on average. That means he's out of the RB2 conversation. That means he's a matchup-based flex play. And I'm not sure Green Bay on Thanksgiving is one of those matchups you want to get him into. So be careful this week. With Gibbs, look, this is why I banged the table for him early as a #1 overall pick. He's still actually chasing Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey, who's there on Monday night. They've had some big seasons as well. But Gibbs, if he keeps on this trajectory, will probably be the top scorer in fantasy as we're going. That's a non-quarterback. So when we look at Gibbs, I mean, he just is so good. Every touch can turn into a touchdown. So, and they also use him well where he doesn't get touched or hurt, right? So let's knock on wood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got him in every league that I'm playing in this year. And it's a lot of fun to watch. I sat back like the Kermit sipping tea meme, watching him run against the Giants and said, look, a lot of the Lions disappointed, but I'm okay. He got all the points. Give him all the points. I don't care.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And David Montgomery, like you said, isn't playable. This Giants game was a game you're supposed to be able to play him, right? And he still wasn't very good. Commanders a few weeks ago, same thing. So just David Montgomery might have another week or two that he's okay, but it's not worth taking that risk. Now, Jaxson Smith-Njigba just continues to ball out. 8 receptions, 167 yards, and 2 touchdowns this week. He is averaging 2.5 more points per game in half PPR than any other wide receiver this season. There's only 8 players averaging 13 or more points per game, and he's at 19.6. He has been incredibly consistent with 7 straight games with over 16 fantasy points. Like, he's destroying it. He's doing amazing things. And I think with where you drafted him, it wasn't like super late, but still you got him in the second, maybe top of the 3rd round. And he has to be that fantasy MVP at this moment.
Yeah, and Sam Darnold is basically being locked into him. I mean, Rashee Rice was a sleeper for a big play, so big deal. He didn't get any catches in this game, sadly. Like, the big plays did happen. They just all went to JSN in this game. So we were right about that piece of analysis. The Titans were going to give up the big plays, but JSN has been like those 20, 25-yard, 30-yard passes over the middle where he gets wide open for Sam Darnold. He doesn't drop anything. He's shown his quickness in the open field. And he's got a quarterback that really feeds him. Torrey Horton's on IR. Cooper Kupp has been a non-factor. Shaheed still getting the mix. Basically, this offense goes to 3 people. Sam Darnold throwing a lot to Jaxson Smith-Njigba. Get a lead. Then turn it over to Zach Charbonnet. Let him get the touchdown. Kenneth Walker runs well, but Charbonnet scores, and that's all you get from the Seahawks. But it works. They're 8-3. You can't argue with their logic at this point. But he's on pace for 2,000 yards, the first 2,000 receiving yard season, and his floor has been so high. He's had 75 yards in at least every game this season. So that's the great thing about him. He's got a floor and a massive ceiling every single week. And this week they got the Vikings, so I'm not afraid. I think he's going to have a big game as well this week.
Now, that Eagles-Cowboys game gave us really nice passing work there with all those weapons. The running backs kind of disappointed. We'll get to Saquon Barkley a little later. But Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown came alive. Jalen Hurts with 31 fantasy points this week, 3 touchdowns, 289 passing yards. And then A.J. Brown with another double-digit target game. But unlike last week, he actually came through with fantasy points with 8 receptions, 110 yards, and a touchdown for 21 points in half PPR. Devonta Smith had a solid game with over 80 yards as well. He had 89 yards on 6 receptions, but no touchdowns. And then on the other side, George Pickens went off again, 146 yards and a touchdown. Second straight monster week for him. CeeDee Lamb, you're probably disappointed because Pickens got so much, but 4 for 75, you'll take it. But I mean, this Dallas offense at home is fantastic. The passing offense. Dak had another big game. They get the Chiefs this week. Not a great matchup, but it's at home. The Eagles wasn't a great matchup either. You play all of them. And it's just good to see Hurts and A.J. Brown connect as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are going to put up points. We know that. I mean, their receivers are going to have great matchups as well for Patrick Mahomes, and Dak Prescott's going to have to put the ball up plenty. So just based on volume, don't worry about the mistakes. And the Chiefs haven't been really adept at forcing a lot of turnovers either. So I think they'll get a lot of volume that's going to carry Dak Prescott. And yeah, don't worry too much. I think it's going to be a fun game for sure in the middle of Thanksgiving. And the Eagles, look, I wrote about it at Sporting News where they cannot run the ball. Stop running it. Just throw it. Just chuck it. Stop trying to force run the ball with Saquon Barkley. It doesn't work. They tried it with a lead. Don't do it. Let Jalen Hurts run. Let Jalen Hurts create. Let's get it to A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith consistently down the stretch. I think that's going to be pretty critical for the Eagles. They play the Bears this week, so they got to be aggressive with their offense if they're going to win that game Black Friday there. So I think when you look at that, I said, hey, just chuck it. This is what you need to do right now. Running game's not working. Saquon Barkley is basically a non-factor at this point. I mean, that's how bad it is. So just throw. And if they throw more, A.J. Brown is going to be happy, and Devonta Smith is going to get his numbers as well.
Absolutely. Now, Matthew Stafford and Davante Adams bounced back. They both had down weeks in week 11, but it came right back for Stafford. You know, it was a tough matchup against the Seahawks secondary in week 11, but against the Buccaneers, destroyed it again with 3 more touchdowns through the air, 273 yards passing, 23 fantasy points. Adams adds another 2 touchdowns. He now has 12 on the season, leading the NFL. And now Adams has scored at least 20 points in 3 of the last 5 games, at least 16 points in 4 of the last 5. So really that week 11 game where he still had 8 targets and a touchdown, but only 1 reception for 1 yard, is the only down week. And that's the same thing for Stafford over the last, month and a half. Like, he's been on absolute fire. They get the Panthers this next week. Keep playing them. But one guy I want to talk about is Rashee Rice, because he had a down week in week 11 as well. Despite having 9 targets, he only had 38 yards. But in week 12, came right back to life, 12 targets, 8 receptions, 141 yards. Didn't score a touchdown this game, but he is now the wide receiver 4 on average this season, behind only JSN, Puka, and George Pickens. And he gets Dallas this week. Yes, please, loving Rashee Rice in fantasy.
Yeah, it didn't look good for 3 quarters. In 4th quarter and overtime, he was just getting open in the middle of the field. So was Xavier Worthy. He didn't have a fantastic game, but he was a playable wide receiver 3 this week. Get Rice and Worthy in your lineups this week. I'd say go for it. I mean, get all the receivers, get everyone you can in this Cowboys-Chiefs game this week. Mahomes was weird. He threw for 352 yards, interception, no touchdowns. That doesn't happen very often when you throw that much for yardage, and then you don't get a score. So he's going to throw plenty. It wasn't like he had a bad game. They just had to kick a lot of field goals. That was kind of annoying, where they had the Travis Kelce touchdown early. You thought you were in business, but they had to call it back with penalties. So the field goals are annoying. The Chiefs need to get better at the red zone to really maximize and get those guys some touchdowns, which would be nice, and not just Kareem Hunt.
And now Ashton Jeanty has a big game as well. It's not even like his numbers look that big. It's 108 scrimmage yards, but he had 8 receptions, 58 yards. He had 17 carries on the ground. He scored a touchdown through the air. So big workload for him, efficient through the air, 20.8 fantasy points and half PPR. And the Raiders just fired their OC Chip Kelly. So possibly that will help him moving forward in this whole offense. They get the Chargers, but it was nice to see Ashton Jeanty put up a big game.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything related with Ashton Jeanty in this game that got Chip Kelly fired, but it's over the course of the season. I think they've just not been good at maximizing the talent of Ashton Jeanty and maybe teasing with what he could do, even against a tough Browns defense when they were trailing. Might say, oh, okay, this is what we needed more of Chip Kelly to stay here. Now they have Greg Olsen back. He seems like he never goes away from the Raiders coaching staff, but he's back as the offensive coordinator. But the one thing they won't do is mess with Jeanty. That whole thing about should he stand tall or crouch as a running back, they're probably not going to mess with him anymore, right? Chip Kelly was adamant about that. That was a big deal early in the season. Now I think Jeanty's going to have a little bit of liberation here and feel great down the stretch. They get the Chargers this week. I think he'll continue to have a big game. The Chargers really didn't look good defensively their last game against the Jaguars. So I think you can play Jeanty with more confidence as RB2, and maybe he has a shot to finish in the top 12 down the stretch without Kelly.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a couple quick notes here before we get into the players with stock down. Wan'Dale Robinson had a massive game with Jameis Winston. So did Jameis Winston. I mean, Jameis Winston was like a baller wide receiver there for a second on that receiving touchdown. That was insane. But they are playing at New England next week. Don't love that. We already saw Wan'Dale have a huge game in week 2, and then he came back down to life. So don't hang on to that too hard. Emmanuel Wilson, big game filling in for Josh Jacobs. As long as Josh Jacobs remains out, you start Emmanuel Wilson. But as soon as Josh Jacobs is back, which could be as soon as Thanksgiving, then you're not playing him. And then Michael Wilson continues to kill it with Marvin Harrison Jr. out. Another double-digit target game, another 118-yard game when he had 185 last week. Gets the Buccaneers this week. I don't know. He's been better than Marvin Harrison Jr. as a wide receiver 1. So maybe he continues to have fantasy relevance when Harrison is back. But obviously, as long as Harrison Jr. is out, you feel very confident playing him. Let's transition to the guys who disappointed us and get into whose stock is down entering week 13.
All right, this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by Prize Picks. It was a pretty good week for Prize Picks picks of the week that we bring to you every Friday. It's very easy if you got into it. This holiday season is one of the best times for sports, bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff push. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick or more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states. That includes California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Prize Picks has added an extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. Creating a lineup takes less than a minute. The app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. You can choose from a huge range of unique stats: fantasy score, field goals attempted, free throws made, turnovers, whatever fits your strategy when you're playing NFL or NBA. Deposit and withdrawals are also quick and easy, which keeps everything flowing for you only on Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all capped there, LOCKEDON NFL, to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, Michelle, it is time to continue the show and look at the sad players who disappointed us this week. So let's look at the quarterbacks. We've got to start at the 2 quarterbacks that we count on every single week. They had a clunker this week. It was Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. I don't know what's going on here. This was pretty bad with Lamar Jackson to have not even close to 200 passing yards, only 11 rushing yards against the Jets, who just basically traded away all their defensive guys. No real passing. It's like they just rode Derrick Henry. They kind of sleptwalked through the game. The Jets didn't really provide much of a challenge. So this is disappointing. This is 2 straight clunkers for Lamar Jackson. They get the Bengals, however, on Thursday, Thanksgiving night game. Do you feel like that's just a little bit of an anomaly? I know they faced the Browns defense, the Jets. They should have done better, but you figure the Bengals have to be a get-well game?
You would think. I mean, it's been 4 out of the last 5 games for Lamar scoring 16 or fewer points. And, 16 points for Lamar is not what you drafted him for that early. I mean, he started off the season fantastic, over 26 points in the first 3 games, but it's really fallen off outside of that game in Miami. And yeah, I mean, in Cleveland, you were like, okay, you can see why he struggled. Playing in Cleveland's hard. That defense is amazing at home. But playing at home against the Jets, who traded away their 2 best defensive weapons, have not been good pretty much all season long, and only scoring 7.2 fantasy points, that's when it gets worrisome. He's a quarterback 12 on average this year. Mark Andrews suffered too, 1 reception, 9 yards. His targets just aren't there. You have to get a touchdown or you're screwed. But Mark Andrews does get the best matchup for tight ends. I mean, we just saw Hunter Henry go off, so you should be able to start Andrews. And I just don't get how you're going to sit Lamar against the Bengals. You're just not. So, but if he does struggle against the Bengals, then we're going to have to consider, benching him possibly in the next week. And now with Josh Allen, it was a game on the road against one of the best defenses in the league, if not the best one, against the Texans. They sacked him 8 times. So I'm willing to throw that one out. However, in 5 road games this season, he only has 7 total touchdowns and 6 giveaways. At home, 21 touchdowns, 5 giveaways in 6 games. So, he's averaging 30 points per game at home in fantasy, only 15.6 on the road. He plays on the road this week, but in Pittsburgh, and that defense can be beat. We just saw Caleb Williams beat up on him. So Josh Allen, you're not even thinking about anything. He'll be okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good rebound spot for him as well. I think Lamar Jackson is pretty obvious. It's a good matchup for Mark Andrews. It's a good matchup for the running game as well. So Derrick Henry can help open things up for Lamar Jackson. Now, one running back that really has been disappointing all season long is Saquon Barkley. He's not even getting the touchdowns, right? Derrick Henry is struggling a little bit to run, but he's getting the touchdowns. Barkley loses his first fumble of the season in this one. His receptions were trying to save his value in this one. And the funny thing is his reception and receiving production is up, but his rushing production is way down this season. It's 2 yards per carry less, Michelle, actually more than that. And he's now fumbling, and he gets shut down really easily. So he's a guy, I think you still have to play him, but you got to temper your expectations. He's down to an RB2 at best at this point. It is the Bears, which is not just a cakewalk. I know the Steelers combination did pretty well against them, Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. So there's some hope there that the game's at home and he can come through. But looks like you're getting a little touchdown dependent with Barkley. Like I said, their struggles in the running game might prompt the Eagles to want to pass a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, another game with fewer than 10 points. It's happened in 4 of the last 6 games. Fewer than 12 points in 5 of the last 6. Only 1 game this season with more than 16 fantasy points in half PPR. And he was going as a 101 in a lot of drafts. So that's been a massive disappointment. And he had 7 receptions for 52 yards, like you just said. He was involved in the passing game and still only scored 8.9 points. Yeah, against the Bears, I do think it's a good matchup, but he can't. I think we had to stop ranking him top 10, top 12. He's somewhere in the RB2 in good matchups. And outside of that, it's just what he is. He's going to disappoint. Now, DeAndre Swift, really, if you played him, you are not happy against the Steelers. 1.4 fantasy points. They get the Eagles next week, so that's not ideal either. He fumbles, and he doesn't see another carry the rest of the game, so he finishes with just 8 carries for 15 yards, 1 reception for 14 yards, and Kyle Monangai keeps continuing to steal touchdowns. So, I mean, maybe they move over to Monangai. Now, honestly, as a Steelers fan, every time Swift came in and got a carry, I was like, yes. Yeah. And anytime Monangai came in, I was like, no. I was very scared. So if I'm that team, I'm going with Monangai moving forward. He's a much better overall player, in my opinion.
Yeah, Ben Johnson is going to play his guys that he trusts a little bit more. You're seeing that, right? The shift. He's trying to figure out DJ Moore, Luther Bird, and Olamide Zaccheaus, and Roma Dunze, the tight ends, how to get all those guys on the same page. So he's actually experimenting with his personnel as we go through week to week, and somehow he's experimenting, and they keep winning games. But I think he was just looking for any opportunity to like move on from Swift. Like Swift is hurt. He's got issues with like staying on the field and being durable and fumbling and producing when he's not catching passes. So I think this may be an actual trend, Michelle, that Kyle Monangai might see the key high leverage touches in this offense going forward. Now, Justin Jefferson, look, it is JJ's fault, but not Justin Jefferson. I like to call him Jettas. But when you look at Jettas, I mean, JJ McCarthy should not be starting in the NFL. I don't think Max Brosmer is going to come in and help. That's the sad part here. So he might have to wait till next year. But Jefferson is doing his best. But when your quarterback is more accurate throwing to the other team, like how are you going to get your fantasy points? I don't know. And they're facing the Seahawks this week. My only hope is they can get a lot of garbage against the Seahawks. Like we thought there was garbage against the Packers. That didn't happen, right? But maybe the garbage, like the Titans were able to put up some points last week, maybe that will work. But that's the only thing we can hope for now with Justin Jefferson. This is a little bit on Kevin O'Connell. You got to figure out how to get your best player involved. I don't care if your quarterback is doing nothing. Throw a 2-yard pass to Justin Jefferson. Get him in the open field. Do something here. But it's going to be a cruel reminder this week as they face Sam Darnold in Seattle. Like, oh, gosh, this is terrible. But I think you have to keep playing Jefferson, but maybe reduce your expectations to wide receiver 2 or even wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if you have to keep playing him, especially in this matchup. Like either way, I mean, JJ McCarthy's in concussion protocol, but it doesn't really matter who the quarterback is because, like you said, we don't think that Max Brosmer is going to come in and fix anything. But maybe he will like heavily target him as like the backup. So I
Can't
get
get
it.
any worse.
I
That's all
get
I
it
can
if you
say.
don't want to sit him, but it's been brutal. Finishing up here with the bad plays, Jameson Williams became a ghost in a high-scoring game in a great matchup. Makes no
Second
sense.
goose egg. Yeah,
And you hate fantasy football for this reason. I mean, he's that type of player that can give you 0 or 20. And that's what you've seen from him. He's hit or bust. So I would keep playing him because of his upside, but be prepared that he could value at any moment. And then Emeka Egbuka. So Baker Mayfield hurts his left shoulder, doesn't return after halftime. We'll see if he can play. That's going to be it. Like with Teddy Bridgewater, you don't feel great about that. A couple other injuries that we didn't mention: T. Higgins concussion, and it was looked like a bad one. I would expect him to at least miss a week. Alvin Kamara knee injury. He looks like he's going to miss time. But with Egbuka, 7 or fewer fantasy points in 5 of the last 6 games after the hot start. It's not been good for him. It's not been good for the Buccaneers offense. They do get a good matchup against the Cardinals next week. So you should be able to start Egbuka, and maybe Bucky Irving will be back. But hopefully Baker is back as well.
Yeah, I think you can probably point to the Mike Evans injury and everything plummeting from there because Mike Evans opened up a lot, right? He drew so much attention, but now these young dudes can't get open, right? If they don't really have a running game now, like everything has kind of gone downhill. I think they were keeping things together with duct tape with all their offensive injuries, and everything's broken apart. And now the person that we didn't want to lose, Baker Mayfield, may be on the shelf. So we could actually see in 2025, Michelle, a matchup of Jacoby Brissett and Teddy Bridgewater this week. It's gross, but that's where we are in the NFL. Unfortunately, Brissett or Bridgewater is not in Minnesota helping Justin Jefferson this week, but that's where it goes. So this is the season of the backup quarterbacks dragging down the value. So keep that in mind and when you're looking at your lineups as we go forward. And because of all those backup quarterbacks, we have to give you some streaming help at that position as well as some waiver wire additions. We'll do that in our final segment.
There's honestly nothing better than being at a live NFL game in the stadium, surrounded by fans, cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it can be frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast and easy and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I see amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. And the app is made super simple to use. So just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go, download Game Time today. All right, let's get into these waiver wire priorities and who we want to pick up and who we're just leaving out there. Let's start with running backs. Devin Neal could be a guy you're looking at to replace Alvin Kamara, but Kamara has been bad pretty much all year long. Yeah. He started to come along right before the bye and, of course, got hurt after 3 carries in this game when we decided to trust him a little bit. But it was actually Taysom Hill who led the team in rushing attempts this past week. They get Miami. It's a nice matchup. And Neal did get 7 targets in the game, 5 receptions, 43 yards. I think Neal would be like a low end RB2 play in a desperate mode if you just need someone. But Taysom Hill, I mean, if you're struggling at tight end, if he's going to start getting rushing attempts and goal line attempts, absolutely, it could be interesting.
Yeah, and they also need some spark for Tyler Shuck because you can't just be throwing to Chris Olave all the time with your offense. So they need something to do there. And Taysom Hill had one brutal red zone carry where they were getting close and he just got destroyed. But he's Taysom Hill. The Saints will find a way, and it's the Dolphins this week, so you can run on the Dolphins for sure. Now, in the handcuff kind of, they're not really handcuffs to me. They do get usage. Bashal Tootin and Kenneth Gainwell to me are almost like the same dude, right? They have a pretty good productive back, and then the guy that's behind. So I think maybe, for sure, if you got Etienne or Warren, I mean, we've told you with this with Warren, you should have Gainwell. But I think it's time to get Bashal Tootin too. They get the Titans this week if you're looking for a streamer. Chris Rodriguez, another guy, Michelle, but they are playing the Broncos this week. So that's a tough one. But, yeah, I mean, this is just what it's like at running back right now this late in the season.
Yeah, Chris Rodriguez does seem like he's taking over the Commanders' backfield with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt disappointing. But like you said, it's a tough matchup. I don't really want to trust that. But 15 carries, it could be a guy that you pick up and stash and see if his workload continues to increase. And then if he has a good matchup, you can play him. Kenneth Gainwell, though, I mean, he might be just a playable guy in his own. Yeah. The last 2 weeks, 15.2 points and 26 points in half PPR. He had 10 carries this last week, 6 targets, 6 receptions. He had opportunities for touchdowns, just missed 2 of them. So I like Gainwell. I mean, Warren's getting his, but I think Gainwell can be started over Tootin as well. I think Tootin is just more of a handcuff type of play if anything happens to Etienne. Now, moving to wide receivers, John Mechie has been pretty solid the last 2 weeks. Yeah. I mean, 12 fantasy points in week 11, 15.5 in week 12. He has a touchdown in both of those games, 7 targets this past week. So, I mean, he's on the field over 82% of the time in both of those games. And AD Mitchell just can't do anything. He's getting targets, but he can't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at these random dudes. I mean, in this throw, some guys in the same pot here. A few rookies, Jayden Higgins, he's coming on strong as the number 2 for Nico Collins. He scored a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs with Alec Imanor and Calvin Ridley hurt. Now he's the guy with Gunnar Helm at tight end if you're really desperate. Those seem to be the targets. And Cam Ward is actually sneakily playing a little bit better if you look at some of the body of work. So he can sustain a little bit. And then with Burden, he's the main slot guy now for the Bears, and they're giving him more and more looks. They've hinted at this. I think they want to turn him into Amon-Ra St. Brown 2. It may not happen until next year, but that's something to happen. And, of course, if Christian Watson or Kayshon Boutte is out there, I think you want to look at that for wide receiver help as well.
Yeah, Boutte definitely disappointed this week, but he should be a guy that I would prefer to pick him up over any of these guys. And then Watson, he's going to be hit or miss. But if out of these, Mechie, Jayden Higgins, Jahmyr Gibbs, or Luther Burden, which one would be your top guy to pick up?
I'm going to Higgins. I like his size. I like the way they use him in the red zone. They don't really have a lot of people there besides Dalton Schultz. I don't know if Davis Mills switching to CJ Stroud or vice versa is going to change anything, but I think Higgins was a great talent, and I think you're seeing it kind of materialize. And I know his usage is going to be there more so with the crowd and some of these other wide receivers.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. Like Higgins, it makes sense for him to continue to see more usage and get more involved in this offense. That seems to be starting to click. Luther Burden, like it's great. He's on the field a little bit more and getting more playing time, but still no more than 5 targets, and just the yards aren't really there either. So it's hard to trust. And he gets the Eagles. At least Higgins gets the Colts this week. So I'm with you, Jayden Higgins there. Now, tight end, check for Colston Loveland if he's still out there. But he does get the Eagles this week. Terrible matchup for tight ends. Brett, I mean, Jake Ferguson ended up having a good game, actually. Bretton Strange came back from a long-term injury, played 71% of the snaps right away, and led the team in 93 receiving yards, 5 receptions, 93 yards against the Cardinals. He gets the Titans this week. He's an option to pick up. Harold Fannin Jr. gets the 49ers this week. He's an option. And then Mike Gesicki, he comes back from injury, ruins Noah Fant, but had 6 targets in this game against the Patriots. T. Higgins is likely out. And last year when we saw T. Higgins out, it was Gesicki who stepped up. So, he could be a viable play as well.
Yeah, let's hope, but we'll see about Joe Burrow returning, but that would definitely help Mike Gesicki. They had a pretty good chemistry last year, especially in those games Higgins missed. So something to watch, but tight end help, and then you throw in Taysom Hill into that mix. Now, streaming quarterbacks, you could look at Trevor Lawrence. They get the Titans this week. It's not always pretty with him, but he can get the job done. He had the touchdowns to Myers and Washington. Wasn't pretty, but he's getting a job done and doing a little bit better. Jacoby Brissett just throwing for insane volume. I'm not sure that I want to go Teddy Bridgewater in the same game, but Brissett getting it done with just chucking. Shedeur Sanders. We'll see how Bryce Young does against the 49ers, and we might feel better about Sanders. And then you look at Tua getting the Saints at home. And then Cam Ward, I said, starting to play well. Don't go get him, but just watch him. He could be valuable down the stretch.
Yeah, I think Brissett would definitely be the top option here if he's still available. The Buccaneers are giving up points, and Brissett has scored at least 19 fantasy points in 6 straight games. So Brissett would be the top. Then probably take a shot on Trevor Lawrence. I don't love it. And Tua's, all up in place. And Shedeur Sanders just completely a risk, but a great matchup, like you said, against the 49ers. But yeah, let's wait to see what Bryce Young does against them before we get too crazy about that matchup. But that is it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen of the day. For your second listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler the Madman Rowland gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will be back tomorrow to start our positional rankings for week 13, getting to quarterbacks and tight ends. And we're going to have to all fit this in before Thanksgiving. So we'll figure that out. Talk to you then. Bye, y'all.